G'day everyone, in this series of videos we're going to show you how to use the vMix GT Title Designer, which has been available since vMix 22. GT Title Designer will create titles for vMix GT, which is a real-time, high-performance, GPU-based static and animated graphics system that we've developed for vMix. What does all that mean exactly? Well, it means that when you're using these titles, there's going to be no additional strain on your CPU. Now, the old vMix Title Designer is still available in older versions of vMix, and also in 22 by clicking the hamburger menu and selecting the Legacy Title Designer. Now, there's videos on our YouTube channel and linked in the description on how to use the Legacy Title Designer. You'll also be able to load the GT Title Designer from the hamburger menu and also from the Windows menu by searching for GT Title Designer. All editions of vMix will have access to create custom static titles, tickers, and use the animated templates available in vMix. vMix 4K and Pro will also allow you to create and use custom animated titles and import PSD files. Alright, so before we get started, I'm just going to quickly show you the animated templates that are available. So just click on Add Input, then Title, and then anything with the GT prefix here, you'll be able to have animations on them. So all of these titles, templates here, are all animated. You can still use the old titles by clicking them here, but I'm going to show you how to set up one of these really quickly. It's pretty straightforward. So we just select one, click OK, and then we can edit it. So we've got a headline and a description. We can change the font size, the font color. We've also got a spell check now in vMix 22 and above, and an easier way to add clocks to your production. So typically what I like to do for my overlay is I like to use the cut effect. That way it's going to use all of the effects that are available on the template that's been created. Now if you use something like a fade, it's going to fade over the top of the existing animations, so it's best to use a cut, so it's going to use all of the templated animations as they should be. So we'll click OK down here. Now if to overlay it, we just overlay it in our channel 1 here. It's going to show the headline description and then fade away like that. Okay, so now we're going to jump to the GT Title Designer. So here we are in the vMix GT Title Designer. So before I show you around a little bit, I'll just let you know that by default it will create a 1080 title. So if you want to change the resolution, just go to New and then go to the resolution you want to use. Alright, so on the left hand side here you'll see all of the different elements that you can use in your title. So text, rectangle, circle, triangle, image, 3D text, and a ticker. So you use these elements to create a title on your canvas, which is the middle section here. So any element that you want to create in your title, you can put it on the canvas and create it there. Now on the right hand side, you'll see that we have layer 1. So when you first create a title in the Title Designer, it will create a global layer, which is layer 1. Now when we add an element to the title, you'll notice that it will appear under layer 1. Now we can create additional layers by clicking this button here, or using the subtract to remove it, or hit the delete key. But I'll show you how to set up layers a little bit later on. Okay, so let's just create a basic static lower third using a rectangle. So I'm going to select the rectangle here, I'm going to use the left mouse key, and I'm going to create it down at the bottom, like so. So I can resize this, I can select it, I can drag it around, I can spin it around, I can press Ctrl Z to undo, I can center it globally like this. I have alignment here, so you notice these green lines will appear. So this is the global alignment, that's center and middle. I can bring that down centered, I can keep it within the safe areas. So usually I'll keep these within the safe area, which is good for broadcast. Now I can turn these safe areas off if I wanted to by pressing this button here. So I've got a basic rectangle. Now I can also right click the rectangle. I can cut, copy, paste. I can edit the fill, which is what we'll do a little bit later on in regards to the color or a fill image. Edit the stroke, which is a border. And then I can also use it to bring forward or send backwards based on the elements in the layer. I can also choose this area to align. So I can go align left, align center. I can right click to dock it, so I could dock it to the bottom, to the top. I can fill the entire screen if I wanted to. I can press Ctrl Z to undo that. And then I can create the group layer, which I'll show you how to do a little bit later on. Alright, so now I've got my basic rectangle. I don't really like a bright red rectangle, so let's just make some changes to it. So up the top here is where you can make changes to your elements that you've added to your title. So first of all, I'm going to change the fill. So I can change the fill color to a nice bright purple. I can choose to change the alpha for that color of the rectangle, and I can also choose to have a gradient or a picture fill for it. So if I wanted to go a gradient, by default you've got this color here. I can change the color, and then the last color here will be transparent. So this is what it'll look like by default, but I don't want to have a transparent like so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a different purple like so and click apply. So now I've got a dark purple to a lighter purple here. Now I can also then add different stops. So I can add stops here to create different looks for my gradient and change the color and that type of thing, and alter the positioning and that if I wanted to. Up the top here I can change the angle, I can select a radial gradient, and I can also choose how it wraps here also. So once you've settled on what you want it to do, you can click apply, and then we'll click OK. So now I have a gradient. Okay, so I can also add a picture fill if I wanted to. So I can add one of these elements here if I wanted to choose to do that. However, I don't particularly want that. I'm just going to leave my purple gradient. All right, so next to that, you'll see the stroke. So the stroke refers to a border. So it's an inner border. So it will be a number of pixels inside the outside of the element that you've got. So let's set this to 4. We can set the style, and we can choose a color. So I'm just going to leave it white. Oh, should we make it? No, I'm going to leave it white. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we can choose to arrange it. But we're going to move to the next section in the menu. So this is styles. So we've set some preset styles if you wanted to use them. For example, like so, like these are preset that you can use without having to go through your own setup. You can just choose to use one of the ones that we've created for you. Now I'm going to set up my own custom one because, you know, we're doing a custom video today. Now on the format screen, this is fairly important if you want to get everything specific. So I can use this slider across here to change the size of the image, or I can use, I can double click on it, press the number, and then hit enter. So I'm going to change this to a very specific dimension, which is handy when you're working with specifics. You want everything to be perfect. Now I can choose to rotate on different axes here if I wanted to. Okay, so I don't really want to make these changes, so I'm just going to send this back to how it was. And obviously I can change the location to be very specific as well. So sometimes when you're lining these up, even though we do have align locking, sometimes you need to be very specific with the location. So you may want to use this menu here in order to create the location. Now you'll see radius here. Now radius refers to being able to create a rounded corner. So I can create a rounded rectangle like so by changing that information. And so yeah, now we'll move on to the effects menu. I can choose the opacity for the entire element here. I can give a shadow. So these are not customizable. These are very basic shadows here that you can choose, and the color of them and alpha of the shadow. Again, they're not customizable. Again, we've got a reflection here if you wanted to add a reflection to it, but these are set sizes like the shadow. Now I can choose to skew this as well if I wanted to. If I wanted to make a cool skew like so, I can choose to use a texture flip. So if I had an image, had an image fill, I could flip it horizontally and vertically. I can create a mask. So if I had a second element like so, I could mask this with the other one so that it's only going to show up within that mask. Get rid of that. I'm going to delete this rectangle, which can delete an element by selecting it and deleting it, or using the buttons up here. Select this again, and then I can also choose to crop the image as well, and I can choose the feather. So typically if you want to do a hard cut, you'll need to not use the feather, and then drag these in. Now you'll notice that the border isn't continuing, so that's something to keep in mind because the border is of the total element, and this is cropping that particular element, which does include the border. So keep that in mind if you're overlapping or layering something. Now we've got our basic rectangle that we want to use for our production title. All right, so one of the important things is adding some text. So first of all, I'm just going to make sure this was aligned. I don't remember what I did to it, so I'm going to click Align Center. So now I've got my rectangle. I'm just going to bring this down a little bit to around the safe zone, like so. And now I'm going to add some text. So I'm going to go to the text section, and I'm going to add text to this. So you just click your left click the mouse and then drag the text block. I can align it to the top. You can see there that we have an alignment. I'm just going to bring it down a little bit. going to right click, I'm going to align this in the center. So we've got that. And I think, how wide do I want this to be? I don't know about that wide, but I can also go to format to make sure that I have a specific width if that's what I want. So I'm going to make that exactly 800. And then I'm going to choose what to do with this text. So I want to make sure it's centered and middled. You don't, all of these are entirely up to you how you want to make your title look. I can alter the text here. Now, if you want to use things like bold, you'll need to use this drop-down menu here because this is where the font elements are. Make this a little bit bigger. I can choose different fonts if I want to. I can choose a word wrap, and I can also choose to change the way the text works. So if I select shrink here, no matter what I put into the text element, it's going to constantly shrink and lower the font size without going outside of the boundaries, which is pretty cool if you've got something with a lot of text or an unknown amount of text going into it. I can choose the color of the text. I've just selected white here. I can also have a border or a stroke on it. And so yeah, that's my text that's created. So I'm good to go with that first lot of text. Now I can just go ahead and create a second lot of text like here. Or if I really wanted to, I could delete that and I could right click or Control C and Control V, and you can see now I've got text block 2. So if I wanted to, I could then just grab text block 2 and bring that down here. Now, as you can see, because it's lining up with the top text there, this is actually a little bit too big. So I'm going to move the actual text box smaller, and I'm going to make the text itself smaller. Because usually with the lower line, it's going to be a little bit smaller. It's probably a little bit too much. Let's go this one here. And let's distinguish it to make it, no, let's not do that. Let's just leave it as it is. Okay, so now I've got text block 1 and text block 2. They're ready to go. They're lined up. Just to double check, I can right click. I can align that in the center. Make sure this is right. Align that in the center too. Okay, so those are both now properly centered and how I want them to be. So what I can do now, I can also choose what I want to have here. So I could actually add the real text in here if I wanted to, so I didn't have to edit it in vMix. But I'm usually just going to put a placeholder like so. Whoops, don't enter that. And then on the right-hand side here, I'll need to choose what I want vMix to see. So I'm going to call this headline and this one description. Okay, so you'll notice in vMix here, we've got headline.txt and description.txt. So this is one of the templated ones that we've got set up. So in order to make sure the headline and description go in that order, in the GT title designer, I'll just make sure that headline is above description. So I've just dragged that up the top. So now headline is above description in the title. If you've got a lot of different elements, it's important to kind of do that so that you've got the most important thing at the top and you can kind of remember how it all flows through. Okay, so now we've got our lower third. I can go ahead and I can save this. Go up here, go to save as. I'm just going to save this as this lower third. Just want to replace the one that I'd already created. And so now I have my lower third ready to go in vMix. So let's just see what that looks like. So we'll go back to vMix. Let's just close this one down. And then go to add input, and then go to title. Now, one of the cool things about the GT title designer is if you've been working on a particular title, it will appear here in the recent section. So you could also go to browse and then select it, but you can also go to recent and it should be there as well. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got headline, description, so we have the ability to, that's exactly what we created before for this particular title. So now we can go ahead and we can add what we want here. Just like we would in a normal production. And now we can overlay this. And we've got hello and hey. So for this overlay title, we can actually animate it a little bit. So we can make it a vertical wipe like I have. I could do like a slide reverse as well. So when this slides into from the side and slides back out. So you can add some basic animation elements to an overlay for a static title. So that's how we set up a basic static title in the GT title designer. Now before I go, I will show you something else as well. So how to add an image. So I can go to the image section, click on the image, and then I'm just going to hold down Shift and drag this in and create it to the size that I want. So now I have my logo. So I've got a logo here, I've got a headline and a description. Now I might want to go, oh, how do I center this? So like I can right click and I can align and I can align in the middle, but it's for layer 1. So what I really want to do is be able to center this based on these other elements that are here. So what I need to do is create a custom layer. So what I'm going to do is going to hit Shift and select all of these layers, then right click and click Create Group. So it's created a group layer, and the layers will go to the size of the largest element. So as you can see here, it's gone to the size of my rectangle that I've created. So I've still got my layer 1 here, which is the global layer for the whole canvas, and I can choose to delete that if I want it, if I'm not going to use it. So I can delete that if I want. So now I have my layer 2, which is just whatever is in this particular layer. So these elements here. All right, so now I've got my logo. I can right click on it and I can align it middle. And as you can see, it's shifted down a little bit and it's now in the middle of this particular layer. So now I've got that, I can save it. Let's go ahead and save this. And let's go back to vMix. So right click on it, reload. And as you can see now, I've got my logo here ready to go. So if I right click on it, I go to title editor, I can now also edit the image that I've got in that area. So right, here we go. So now I've got my logo and I've got my content there as well. All right, so now we're about to wrap up this tutorial. I just quickly want to show you that you can change an image by right clicking on it and then going to browse. And then finally, I'm going to show you quickly how to add a ticker. So we're going to start again. We're going to go with new. Yep. And so basically with tickers, typically what you want to do is create a rectangle and put the text down the bottom that goes over the top of it. So I can dock this at the bottom like so, or I could have just shifted around and made this across the exact bottom area. And then I can go to the ticker element and create a ticker. So I can just line this up with this other element like so. And now I can go ahead and go to the home menu and set what I want to do with this text. I'm going to make this white, make sure it's in the middle so when it comes out it's like so. And then go to format. Now format will allow me to change what happens with this particular ticker here. So the type is typically going to be replaced. Now you may use add if you're using data sources in a certain type of way. Direction, left, right, top, bottom. So I can change the direction of it if I wanted to. I can make it vertical if I'm doing top and bottom. I'm going to set this as left, and I can change the speed here as well. But I'm just going to leave this at 1. Now all I need to do is save it. Now I could change the name of the ticker if I wanted to. That will be the name that appears in vMix. But I'm just going to click save as. Yep, save it as this ticker here. And then I'm going to go back to vMix and then go to add input, go to title. Now as we remember before, when we use a GT title editor, we can see recent ones that have been saved by going to recent, select that one, and now I can start adding text to it, text, like so. And then I can start using that in my production. Now I probably should have made that a little bit faster, but that's how you can add a ticker in all versions of vMix. If you do have any questions about the GT Title Designer, please send us an email via the support page on vmix.com. It's really hard to answer technical questions via YouTube comments. Now, if you do want to know a little bit more information, feel free to check out the videos that are on this series featuring animation and more advanced features. So thanks for watching, and we will see you later.
Thanks for watching. Click to watch another exciting vMix video or head to vmix.com for a free 60-day trial. See you later.